Welcome to Future Proof Sales, the AI Deep Dives podcast. My name is George Radu, and I'm the author of the book with the same name as this podcast. A quick favor before we start. Because this show is brand new, we are entirely at the mercy of the algorithms. If you find value in what we are building here today, please hit the follow button on Spotify or whatever platform you are listening on right now. Being an early supporter is the single biggest thing you can do to help this mission grow. Now, let's let our hosts take over the studio for today's deep dive, and I'll see you on the other side.
You know, uh, it used to be that when you wanted to understand a complex topic or buy a massive enterprise level system for your company, you were essentially standing outside this locked vault of blueprints.
Right, totally locked out.
Yeah, you couldn't see what was inside at all. You had to go out and find the one architect who actually held the key, sit down with them, and basically beg them to describe the floor plan to you.
And that was literally the only way in. I mean, you had no alternative but to rely entirely on their specific interpretation of what was inside that vault.
But today, someone didn't just unlock the vault. They completely blew the doors off. They handed you, 3,000 pages of competing blueprints, a highly detailed structural analysis, drone footage of the property.
Oh, and a list of 200 contractors who all claim they can build it better and faster.
Exactly. And instead of feeling empowered by all this incredible transparency, you're just standing there in the rubble, completely paralyzed, thinking, I literally just wanted to build a shed.
That's just the perfect visualization of the modern buyer's dilemma right there. We have completely moved from a funnel defined by information scarcity to one of absolute, just overwhelming information saturation.
Which is why we are here today. Welcome to this deep dive. We are exploring a really fundamental shift in the modern business landscape. So whether you are prepping for a major presentation or maybe trying to overhaul your team's strategy or, you're just intensely curious about how human psychology is shifting in this digital age, our mission today is for you.
Yeah, we really want to unpack this for you.
Exactly. We're going to uncover why modern decision makers are completely paralyzed by information overload. We'll map out how you can pivot to become what we call a clear filter for your prospects. And we'll look at the exact roadmap for managers to train their teams to thrive in this new ecosystem-driven, AI-powered reality.
It's a huge shift. And it really all comes down to this core idea of, well, how to stop selling software and start selling Sundays.
Yes, I love that concept. All right, let's unpack this, starting with what you called the death of the old playbook.
All right, so the old playbook was entirely built on that locked vault concept you just mentioned. It relied on information asymmetry.
Meaning one side just had all the cards.
Precisely. In the past, sellers inherently held the leverage because they held the knowledge. If a chief financial officer wanted, say, pricing benchmarks or feature comparisons back in 1995, they couldn't just open a browser and find them.
Right. Google wasn't a thing.
No, they had to take a meeting. They had to endure the whole sales pitch just to extract the raw data they needed.
So the power dynamic was completely skewed in one direction.
It really was. But the data shows us that world is completely gone. Today, B2B buyers complete anywhere from 57 to 70% of their research before they ever even speak to a human being.
Wow, 70%.
Yeah, they're pulling analyst reports, scouring deep Reddit threads, watching unlisted YouTube demos, and checking peer reviews on all these independent sites.
So by the time they actually sit down with you on a Zoom call, they already know your feature list, they probably know your pricing model inside and out, and honestly, they might even know the names of the last 3 executives who left your company.
Oh, they definitely do.
But here is the paradox. And this absolutely blew my mind when I read it in the source material. This massive abundance of information hasn't made people more decisive. It has actually created a severe paradox of choice.
It's crippling, really.
It is. When you look at an analysis of over 2.5 million sales conversations, the number of deals that end in just no decision is staggering. We're talking between 40 and 60% of all deals just evaporate.
And we really have to be clear about why they evaporate. Because, they don't die because the buyer suddenly lost their budget or because a competitor swooped in with a slightly better product.
Right.
They die simply because of buyer indecision. The status quo, doing nothing at all, feels drastically safer than making a choice that might end up being wrong.
It is exactly like streaming service paralysis. You know when you sit down on a Friday night and you have access to literally thousands of movies across 5 different apps?
Oh, yeah. Every weekend.
Right. And you spend an hour scrolling, reading descriptions, watching trailers, getting more and more stressed out, and eventually you just give up, close the app, and go to sleep.
That exact same cognitive overload is happening in corporate boardrooms right now over $5 million contracts.
That's wild to think about.
But it's true, because when a buyer researches for hours, they don't just find pristine, clear facts. They find massive contradictions. Like an industry analyst says vendor X is the gold standard, right?
Okay, sounds good.
But then a review site is filled with brutal one-star reviews for vendor X complaining about their terrible customer support.
Oh, right. The noise.
Exactly. And meanwhile, the buyer's internal IT team wants a system built on one specific architecture, but the finance team demands something entirely different to save money. So they aren't suffering from a lack of information. They are suffering from a total lack of clarity.
But wait, let me push back on this for a second. If buyers are doing 70% of the research entirely on their own, and they are getting overwhelmed and confused by that last 30% of the decision-making process, why do they even need a human to intervene at all?
What do you mean?
Well, why not just feed all those conflicting PDFs, those Reddit threads and feature lists into ChatGPT and let the AI make the final, logical, mathematically sound choice for them?
That is the million-dollar question. And the answer is because AI is incredible at summarizing data, comparing features, and, benchmarking pricing. But it fundamentally cannot provide confidence.
Confident?
Right. AI cannot look a nervous chief information officer in the eye and say, look, I understand why your engineering team is terrified about this integration risk, but here's exactly how we are going to handle it together. AI provides probabilities. Humans provide reassurance.
So if AI is just adding to the noise and contradiction out there, the human's job isn't to provide more data anymore. The human literally has to become the filter.
Exactly. You have to move from repeating features to actively reframing the buyer's context. And this is where that brilliant mantra comes in. Stop selling software. Start selling Sundays.
I love that framing so much. The whole idea is that the buyer doesn't actually care about the underlying code or the specific mechanism of the software or even your shiny new dashboard.
No, they really don't.
They care about the outcome. They care that the software works so seamlessly and automates so much of their manual data entry that they don't have to work over the weekend. They literally get their Sunday back. It is the art of contextual translation.
And translating that context requires a very specific approach. Because buyers aren't showing up to these meetings with wide-eyed curiosity anymore.
No, they're exhausted.
They're showing up with deep skepticism, completely burnt out from their own research. So to survive this, there is this 4-step framework you really have to master.
Okay, lay it on us. What's step 1?
Step 1 is filter. You aggressively separate the actual signal from all that noise. Just cut the fat.
Got it. Step 2.
Step 2 is translate. That's where you put those technical specifications directly into the buyer's unique, highly specific context, make it about their Sunday.
Right. Okay, step 3.
Step 3 is validate. You have to reinforce the independent research they've already done so they feel smart and respected. Acknowledge their hard work.
Which lowers their defenses, I imagine.
Exactly. And then step 4 is guide. Focus entirely on building their confidence to reduce that decision paralysis.
Let's ground this in reality for a second, because there is a perfect example of this framework in action from the research. Picture an HR director, okay? It's 2024. She is looking at 10 different AI recruiting platforms.
A nightmare scenario.
Seriously. Her boss wants the tech implemented yesterday. She's got 10 tabs open on her browser, and every single one of those platforms promises the exact same thing. We hire faster, fairer, and smarter. It's just an impenetrable wall of marketing noise.
And let me guess, the traditional rep walks into that room and immediately opens a slide deck to brag about their proprietary algorithm.
Yep. They just add to the noise. But the rep who actually wins the deal does the complete opposite.
Right.
The winning rep didn't pitch their slick software at all. They walked in and essentially acted as a consultant. They said, look, I know you've researched 10 different tools, you've done all the heavy lifting, but given the specific size of your mid-market company and your current legacy HR infrastructure, 7 of those tools are going to be a total nightmare to integrate.
Wow, just cutting them out right away.
Exactly. They said, only 3 of these options are actually viable for you. Here is why, and here are the specific unvarnished trade-offs you need to consider for each of those 3.
See, that is a masterclass in the 4 steps.
That's right.
They filtered out the 7 irrelevant options instantly, saving the buyer immense cognitive strain.
Right.
They translated the remaining 3 into the buyer's specific mid-market context.
Right.
They validated the buyer's exhausting research.
Yeah.
And then they guided them toward a confident decision by laying out the trade-offs honestly.
So what does this all mean? It means you literally have to stop selling your software's bulleted list of features. Nobody cares. You have to start selling the clarity of the decision itself. You are selling your ability to make their headache go away.
But here is the critical pivot, though. You cannot sell clarity if you are just talking at your buyer. The physical way we present information has to fundamentally change. We have to address the monologue problem.
The monologue problem. Oh man, I feel like everyone listening to this has been a victim of the monologue problem at some point in their career.
Without a doubt. And it's rooted in cognitive load theory. So the human brain's working memory acts as this strict, ruthless filter. It is constantly deciding what is worth keeping and what is just background noise.
Right, it's trying to save energy.
Exactly. And neurologically, there is a strict 10-minute attention cliff.
10 minutes, that's it.
That's it. If a presenter talks uninterrupted, just dumping statistics and bullet points, after 10 minutes of that same stimulus, human engagement doesn't just dip. It completely falls off a cliff. The brain gets overwhelmed and simply shuts off to protect itself.
And yet, how many enterprise presentations completely ignore this basic neurological fact? I mean, there is this absolute horror story from the source about a Fortune 500 CIO sitting through an 80-slide deck from a major enterprise vendor.
80 slides. That is physical torture.
It is. And predictably, by slide 50, half the room is completely zoned out, just staring at the wall. By slide 70, the executive team is blatantly checking their emails and sending Slack messages to each other under the table.
They've completely checked out.
And the crazy thing is they never even made it to the Q&A section because the time ran out. The vendor actually had a really great product, but they lost a massive deal because the presentation was an endurance test, not an engaging dialogue.
And the science supports exactly why that fails. When you just present raw data on a slide, the brain processes it purely logically, which is exhausting. But consider the Stanford University study that showed stories are 22 times more memorable than standalone facts.
22 times?
Yeah, because when you tell a story, say, about another client in their exact industry who faced the exact same catastrophic failure and overcame it, the brain actively releases oxytocin. It builds empathy. It builds a shared reality.
Okay, but I guarantee there are managers listening right now who are actively panicking at the idea of taking the heavily scripted slide deck away from their sales team.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, isn't that deck a necessary safety net? If we force a team to abandon the presentation for this idea of, like, co-creation and storytelling, doesn't the meeting just devolve into unorganized chaos?
That is a very valid fear. But abandoning the monologue doesn't mean abandoning structure entirely. You just change the type of structure you rely on. Well, the roadmap for managers is to train teams to intentionally pause every 10 minutes, respecting that neurological attention cliff we talked about. You replace passive slides with interactive tools.
Like what?
Like pulling up a live ROI calculator and having the buyer actually input their own internal numbers right there on the call. Or you open a digital whiteboard and map out their specific workflow on the screen, moving the pieces around together. You make the buyer an active participant, not just a captive spectator.
And there's this advanced technique for this interactive approach that I absolutely love. It's called constructive provocation.
Yes, that is such a powerful tool. Constructive provocation basically means respectfully challenging a buyer's assumptions just to snap them out of autopilot.
So if a buyer says, we really just want the absolute basic, cheapest tier of your tool, the sellers shouldn't just smile and write up the contract.
No, they should provoke them.
Right. They should say something like, we can absolutely do that. But based on what we've seen with other companies in your heavily regulated industry, using the basic tier usually leads to a 30% increase in compliance risks within the first year. So how is your legal team factoring a potential $500,000 compliance fine into this budget?
Boom. Exactly. That completely shifts the dynamic of the room. They are no longer just a vendor taking an order. They are an expert protecting the client from a massive blind spot.
It builds so much credibility.
It does. But, to invite that kind of interaction and to successfully challenge a buyer to their face without offending them, that requires a massive reservoir of trust. And trust is currently under siege by the very technology everyone is using to prepare for these meetings.
Yes, we really have to talk about trust in the AI era because AI is basically operating as the silent closer right now.
It really is.
It's running in the background of almost every business interaction, orchestrating follow-up cadences, predicting the mathematically optimal day and time to send an email, silently tracking digital engagement.
But buyers aren't naive.
No, they know how the game is played because they are using AI too. They are taking vendor proposals, feeding them into their own internal AI models and asking the machine to find the hidden weaknesses or bloated pricing.
They are fact-checking claims live mid-meeting.
Yes. There's that incredible scenario in the text of a chief technology officer sitting in a vendor pitch. The rep makes this really bold claim about their software speed, and the CTO literally interrupts the pitch, looks up from their laptop and says, "Hey, we just asked ChatGPT to compare your solution to your top competitor, and the AI says they score significantly better on legacy system integration." How do you respond to that?
Oh man, imagine being that rep if you were relying solely on a canned marketing script.
You would freeze. You literally can't outdata the AI in real time.
You can't, which is why relying on AI to do your selling for you is so dangerous.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We are entering what's called the uncanny valley of sales AI. You know, the uncanny valley in robotics or animation, right?
Oh yeah, where a robot looks almost perfectly human, but something in the eyes or the movement is just slightly off.
Exactly, and it triggers this subtle, creeping revulsion.
Yeah, it's a deeply ingrained psychological response. It just creeps you out.
Well, the exact same phenomenon happens in modern business communication. Let's say a rep uses an AI tool that scrapes a prospect's digital footprint, right? And it automatically sends an email saying, "Hi, Sarah. I saw you downloaded our white paper on cloud security at 11:42 p.m. on a Thursday."
Oh no.
Right. The buyer doesn't read that and think, "Wow, what incredibly attentive, personalized service." They think, "Wow, you are actively monitoring my late-night reading habits with the tracking pixel." That is incredibly creepy.
That completely destroys any chance of real intimacy.
It does. It backfires completely.
And if we break down the mechanics of trust, it explains perfectly why that uncanny valley effect is so destructive. There is this concept known as the trust equation. It's a literal formula.
Oh, I love a good formula.
It goes like this. Trust equals credibility plus reliability plus intimacy. And all of that is divided by self-orientation.
Okay, let's break that formula down so everyone listening can actually use it in their next meeting.
Sure. So credibility is your proof. That's your case studies, your industry knowledge, your data.
Right.
Reliability is consistency. Are you doing what you say you will do? Showing up on time, sending the proposal when you promised.
Basic professionalism, yeah.
Exactly. Then intimacy is the authentic human connection. It's making the buyer feel safe, heard, and understood on a deeply personal level.
And then you divide all of that by self-orientation, which is what exactly?
Self-orientation is how much the buyer perceives you are just in it for yourself. Like, are you actually trying to solve their problem, or are you just trying to hit your end-of-quarter quota?
So credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation. That means if your self-orientation is high, your trust score plummets no matter how incredibly credible you are.
Exactly. Now, apply AI to that equation. AI can handle credibility effortlessly, right? By instantly sourcing benchmark data and drafting pristine case studies. And AI is flawless at reliability. It never forgets to send a follow-up email or log a calendar invite.
Wow.
But AI completely fails at intimacy. And if AI outreach is poorly tuned, like that creepy white paper email at midnight, it drastically spikes the perception of self-orientation. It feels like automated spam designed solely to extract a meeting from the buyer for the seller's benefit.
So the human's absolute most important job is to fiercely protect the intimacy and lower the self-orientation.
100%.
You let the machine handle the cadence and the data processing, but you must inject the empathy. You use the AI to free up your time so you can actually sit down and understand the buyer's unique stress.
Mastering this delicate balance of AI efficiency and human empathy is crucial. But, applying this trust equation is no longer just a dynamic between one persuasive seller and one decisive buyer. The landscape has become vastly more complicated than that.
Which perfectly leads us to the final massive evolution we need to cover today: ecosystem sales. This is essentially the absolute definitive death of the lone wolf.
Yes. For decades, corporate culture glorified the lone wolf archetype.
You all know the type.
Right. This was the charismatic rainmaker who kept their methods entirely secret, refused to log their notes in the CRM system, charmed the single executive decision maker over an expensive steak dinner, and closed the million-dollar deal entirely through sheer force of personality.
It's the quintessential movie salesperson. It looks great on film.
It does. But that archetype is entirely dead in the real world. Today, a typical B2B enterprise buying decision doesn't involve one powerful executive. It involves a sprawling, anxious committee of like 6 to 10 different stakeholders.
It's a crowd. You have the IT director who's terrified about security vulnerabilities. You have the CFO obsessing over the 3-year ROI.
Yep.
You have heavily scrutinizing the compliance terms. And you have HR worrying about whether the employees will actually adopt the new tool or just completely revolt.
And a single lone wolf cannot successfully navigate the competing, often hostile agendas of 10 different departments. The deals are simply too complex now.
Right.
They require integrating with cloud hosting partners, bringing in external implementation consultants, and ensuring cross-departmental alignment long before a contract is ever signed.
So how does a manager actually train a team for this? Because, I mean, you can't just tell a team of fiercely independent lone wolves to suddenly hold hands, sing songs, and share their commissions.
No, they would laugh you out of the room. You have to actively reprogram them with what is being called the new sales DNA.
New sales DNA. What's in it?
It consists of 4 intertwined strands. First, human skills. That's deep empathy, active listening, and the intuition to read a room when the CFO and the CTO are quietly disagreeing with each other.
Right, the stuff AI can't do.
Exactly. Second is tech fluency. This means treating AI as an active daily co-pilot to handle the busy work, rather than treating it as a threat to be avoided.
Okay, third.
Third is ecosystem thinking. You have to view other vendors, software integrations, and external consultants as vital allies in the deal, not as competitors fighting for the same budget.
Oh, that's a huge mindset shift.
Massive.
Yeah?
And fourth is adaptability. Just the constant, humble willingness to unlearn old habits that simply no longer work.
Practically, as a manager, this means you have to fundamentally shift your internal culture and your compensation structures. You have to stop handing out massive, disproportionate rewards for isolated solo wins.
You really do.
You have to start recognizing and financially rewarding what the research calls the bridge builders.
Yes. The bridge builders are the new heroes of this landscape.
Yes.
They are the professionals who realize they aren't just pitching a product, they are orchestrating a holistic, multi-layered solution.
Give me an example of how a bridge builder operates in the wild.
Okay, let's say the IT director is paranoid about data migration, right? The bridge builder doesn't just promise it will be fine. They actively connect their own lead engineer with the client's IT team to talk shop directly.
Peer-to-peer.
Exactly. And if the CFO is anxious about the upfront cost, the bridge builder brings in a trusted third-party financing partner to restructure the terms for them. They literally build a coalition.
They realize they aren't the star soloist on the stage anymore. They are the conductor of the orchestra. Their job is to make sure all the different instruments are playing the exact same sheet music.
That's a great analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals the ultimate inescapable truth of the modern business landscape. Sales is no longer product versus product. It is ecosystem versus ecosystem.
Wow. Ecosystem versus ecosystem.
Right. When a buyer makes a major choice today, they aren't just asking, what does your software do? They're asking, who stands with you? What network of support, partners, integration tools, and external expertise am I joining if I tether my company's future to you?
Okay, let's take a breath and just recap this incredible journey. We started by looking at the death of information scarcity. The doors to the vault have been blown wide open.
Wide open.
Your buyers, your clients, your internal colleagues, they are drowning in conflicting data. They are utterly paralyzed by the paradox of choice, and they are exhausted by the noise.
And to survive and thrive in this environment, you really must transform from a traditional extractor of information, the old lone wolf hawking features, into a trusted, empathetic interpreter.
Yes. You must become a masterful orchestrator of ecosystems. You stop selling the software and you start selling the sundae. You become that clear filter.
Absolutely.
Because whether you are a sales director completely overhauling your team's outdated playbook, or you're just a professional trying to build consensus for a new idea in a very noisy, skeptical world, acting as a clear, empathetic filter is your ultimate competitive advantage.
AI will handle the noise, it will process the data, schedule the meetings, and generate the reports. You must handle the nuance. You must handle the trust.
Which leaves us with one final lingering thought for you to take away and mull over.
Yeah, this is a big one.
We've talked extensively about how AI is mastering data, cadence, and even basic strategic benchmarking. But imagine a future, and maybe it's not that far off, where AI becomes so incredibly advanced that it can perfectly simulate empathy.
It's definitely coming.
Imagine an AI that can orchestrate a massive ecosystem of vendors entirely on its own, instantly negotiating contracts across 10 different departments in milliseconds without even breaking a sweat.
Right.
If a machine can eventually do all of that, What will be the one true premium human skill left?
It is a profound, slightly unsettling question, honestly. But the answer likely lies in something a machine fundamentally, structurally cannot do.
Right. Perhaps the only irreplaceable human trait left will be the willingness to take personal moral accountability for a failure.
Oh, that's powerful.
Because an algorithm can calculate risk with perfect precision, but an algorithm cannot look a terrified client in the eye and say, I am personally responsible for this implementation. If this goes wrong, it is on me, and I give you my word, I will make it right.
Exactly. That emotional weight, the moral shoulder to bear the burden of a shared risk, is the one thing a machine can never actually carry.
So when you look out at that massive, overwhelming landscape of information and paralyzed decision makers,
Don't just hand them another map or another list of features.
exactly, walk into the dirt with them, take on the risk, and help them actually build the shed. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.